This is our data visualization presentation by Delaney Ham,
Sarah Scott,
and Katriana Byrne. And the purpose of this memorandum is to analyze the official UNM enrollment report for spring 2016. We created 4 separate graphs that display the average age of students in various degree programs at the University of New Mexico between the years 2012 and 2016. We will be discussing the ways that each graph best appeals to a specific audience, as well as the most appropriate setting for each style of graph. And we inferred that this set of data was originally used by employees of the University of New Mexico to better understand the diversity within the university as a way to reach out to potential incoming students. So we believe that these faculty members were most likely trying to pinpoint ways in which the university would better appeal to those given age groups. So our first graphic is a table, and tables are effective in sharing information that has several variables and a large array of data. Although tables do not have the same visual appeal that the other graphs contain, they're very useful when a large amount of information needs to be conveyed to the audience. So tables aren't as effective when used in slideshows and presentations because the data is a bit harder to understand with a single glance. Instead, the reader must really focus on the data in order to make sense of any trends or changes that have occurred in the data. So the data that we use shows the average age of UNM students between the years 2012 and 2016. And in this data set, we can see that the most common age for UNM students is between the ages of 25 and 30. Our next graphic that we used is a bar graph.
Bar graphs, like tables, are an excellent way to communicate numerical values, but bar graphs are better at showing the relative values or 2 or more items. There are many different types of bar graphs, but the bar graph that we chose to use is called a cluster bar graph. It is given this name because the bars are shown in clusters based on the certain group that they belong to. The cluster bar graph allows for comparison between the groups that deal with numerical data. This bar graph does a great job of comparing the average ages among the different programs. As we can see in this bar graph, it is apparent that a majority of the students at all levels are between the ages of 25 and 30. The variation between the ages are easy to identify right away due to the way the bar graph displays the data. Bar graphs are a great graphic to use in presentations and slideshows due to the fact that they are so widely understood. Our next graph is a line graph. The line graph below displays the average student ages of UNM spring enrollment populations across all levels from 2012 to 2016. Listed along the x-axis are the various degree levels categorized by UNM, and on the y-axis you can find the average age of students in each level throughout the past 5 years. A line graph is known to be very useful when showing changes in quantity, but with this specific data set, it is hard to distinguish the different variables because over the years, the data has been very consistent, so the lines overlap. But after analyzing the graph, the audience will have a good idea of the average ages at UNM.
Finally, the last graphic is a stacked column bar graph. This medium of bar graph separates the data into a different depth perception, allowing the audience to see the data broken into separate bars in relation to each other. This type of bar graph best pertains to an audience interested in easily telling apart data in different categories. As you can see, the lined bar graph makes it easy to gauge exactly where the bars fall in relation to the y-axis, which gives off their values. From viewing the same data set we see that, in general, students among all degree programs were older in 2016 than they were in preceding spring semesters, because of the taller blue bar in the background that represents 2016. This presentation focused on understanding the effectiveness of 4 specific graphics: a table, a bar graph, a line graph, and a stacked column bar graph, all of which were focused on the UNM spring enrollment average age between 2012 and 2016. We've shown that tables are best effective in showing information with multiple variables, bar graphs are best at showing relative values between multiple items, line graphs are best when showing changes in quantity over time, and finally, stacked column bar graphs are best at showing how variables relate among each other using different depth perceptions. As we've shown, different graphs relay different messages that pertain to different audiences. In order to be successful as a technical writer, it is imperative to know when to use certain graphics, especially when speaking about data to your audience.